Welcome back to another episode of the Uninsured Ankles podcast. Joining me today are Haley Everett, Jordan Stratton, and Josh Barton. Boys, we got some trades coming up. Some more trades probably on the horizon, but we got two juicy ones to talk about tonight. One happened last night. Overnight, I woke up to I think 53 text messages from Jordan and Josh about this. Another one I think just happened the past 5 to 10 minutes. So let's get into it. First, let's start with Luka. What's going on?
Well,
That's
I've been saying this all day. I just want to get this on record. This is already the worst trade in NBA history. There's a million different ways you can look at it. One, as a Celtics fan, I can't believe the Lakers somehow got Luka. As a Luka fan, I can't believe he's going to the Lakers. And as like a pseudo Dallas fan, what in the world? Like the all the reporting is Dallas just did this on their own volition. Like, hey, let's trade Luka now. This seems like a good idea. It's just the most bizarre trade, I think, of our lifetimes.
yeah, it feels like it was done with no I mean, you could hear in the press conference that they just did, they were talking about like, oh, well, 10 years down the road, well, we might not even be here in 3 to 4 years. So who knows? And that was like their position on the longevity of the team was like, I don't know, we might be run dry by the time 3 to 4 years is up. And I mean, because they got a point that like I think I think the Mavs probably are better immediately because
Mm,
with the way it just seems like the dynamic between the team and Luka was not going the way it needed to go. The reports are that he wasn't going to sign his supermax this summer. He was going to wait the additional year to give himself
false.
some leeway to make another play. And so if he's going to stay 270 pounds and not make it happen, and your other option is to get one of the top three defensive players in the league who also puts up 30 points a night and clearly is a perfect plug in with Kyrie, and Luka is currently hurt.
Mm.
I think the immediate impact is a positive one, but it can't be positive more than like 4 months out from right now.
So let me ask you this as a Lakers fan then. Do you regret the trade then if Dallas is potentially the winner of the next 4 months?
No, of course not. Obviously, it's
Point
it's
made.
a it's a massive fleece. But yeah, their position the whole time is we're trying to win now, and they think it helps them win now. I think they might have a point. I think their team might put up a better record with AD in the lineup than they would with Luka in the lineup this year. But that doesn't say anything about the fact that the Lakers now get an extra 7 years out of one of the best players on the planet compared to AD, 7 years older and not as good overall. Um, yeah, the Lakers weren't winning a championship this year. Yeah, unless they like just made some crazy plays and the cap wasn't going to allow them to do that. So making a move like this that clearly has the next 10 years in mind is for
So we're
sure the right move.
so we're calling this year a wash for the Lakers.
I don't know if I would call it a wash. You have LeBron and Luca. I mean, they have a puncher's chance. I mean, we talked about recently OKC just looking like an absolute juggernaut. So, does anyone have really a chance against OKC? But even still, you have one of the three best players in the league and arguably the greatest player of all time on the same team. It's at least a puncher's chance.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
I mean,
is it better though than AD though? Like that was Jordan's thing from the beginning of the preseason, right? You've got two all NBA guys. One of them's a defensive prowess. One's like the ultimate five who can stretch the floor, be the defensive anchor, all those things. Then you've got LeBron, who's the ultimate team player, and yet they can't piece it together. And now you're gonna have Lucas-centered basketball again, or unless I mean maybe LeBron can teach him otherwise. But this isn't like we have one ball.
LeBron has proved before that he can have a player-centric offensive player, i.e. Dwayne Wade, i.e. Chris Bosh, and then
i.e.
turn them
Kyrie.
into Kyrie and turn them into like team ball players and just figure it out. I mean that's the one thing about LeBron is that he it's not just him teaching them, it's him molding his game as needed, like depending on who his teammates have been over time. Like he's
Okay.
he's the best in history at saying, I'm going to match with any star and I'm going to make it work. AD, Kyrie, Kevin Love, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, like it's ridiculous. And I agree that there's a good chance that the Lakers can still end up being really good this year should Luka be healthy. But there's also still a good chance that the Mavericks are better or as good as they were going to be based on the fact that Luka's just been so unhealthy this year. And we don't really know his health status right now. And he could also just like decide, I'm gonna get right and I'm gonna come back and
Well,
go
we do know
crazy.
his status that he's overweight and he's out of playing shape. So like that's not an unknown. The other parts of his leg, sure, we don't know that quite yet. But this we're still and this not isn't
He
like
is
we're talking about
pushing 270 is what I heard in the latest reports, which would make him like the fifth heaviest player in the entire NBA.
mm,
I mean, that's fair, but also one of the heaviest players in the league is Nikola Jokic, who is universally regarded as the best player in the league. So,
He is a center though.
And
Jokic has like 5 inches on him.
he's been carrying that weight for years. Like Luka put this on between the end of last season and this season. Like dude got thickums.
I mean,
Yeah, and
that's definitely a concern for sure. I think it's a little overblown, and I think it's Nico Harrison using the media to his advantage to try to justify this trade. I just want to call him out on the pod because I'm sure he's listening to it. That like I've been going back and forth all day ever since the news broke last night about the trade, and my initial reaction was that it was the Adelson family, the new owners of the Mavs, and they sort of greenlit this to move Lucas so they didn't have to pay him for the Supermax. After seeing that press conference and Nico Harrison up there smiling and like holding court and looking like the happiest person in the world, and
with
seeing Jason
grumpy
Kidd
Jason
just
Kidd
slowly
next to him.
dying inside with every word. This was entirely Nico Harrison. Somehow he convinced the Adelson family to approve this move. It shows you one of the reports was that they were going to be disinterested as owners when Cuban sold the team to them. They were more concerned about the real estate part of the purchase than the team. So now you have owners who aren't really interested in this GM who famously, before his tenure with the Mavs, he failed signing Steph Curry to Nike because he got his name wrong and called him Stephon Curry the entire time. So I don't know what he was thinking. That was one of the most, it's again, bizarre.
Before we continue on basketball, I just want to highlight that there are two major teams in Dallas. One where you can't get the owner out of their business and Jerry Jones, and now it sounds like we've got the complete opposite where they're just completely apathetic to their team.
What a
Both
time to
both
be
of
alive
which
in Dallas.
are just very sad. You guys see the fans like carrying around a coffin and stuff in front of the arena this afternoon. It was
Mm.
They
there
spent
and it wasn't for Luca.
$3,000 to get it overnighted.
It wasn't a coffin for Luca. It was a coffin that just had the logo of the team on the cover.
So as bad as this has been, like as an indictment on Nico Harrison's failure, he was doing such a great job up to now.
Yeah,
And
it's true.
that is, I think, probably one of the more baffling things. It's like you make a trade at last trade deadline that made your team so demonstrably better in every way. You
Hmm.
make it to the finals, and then you're like, F it, blow it up. You're like,
All right,
Yeah,
hot
what?
take. This is
that
my hot take from this whole trade. Nico Harrison's gonna come out looking good in this, and something's gonna go wrong with the Lakers and Luca. You guys know I'm a
Re-
Luca hater in general, all right?
Nico's
Like
sticking together.
Well,
I don't like
let's
Nico Harrison,
let's keep it
I'm calling my hot take here that like this is gonna come out looking not bad for him.
let's keep it a stack. The Lakers will screw this up somehow. However, the I don't think that'll necessarily make it look better on
Fair.
Nico. It's like how everybody's now saying that the Hawks won the trade on draft night when they got Trae Young. That that kind of rhetoric just doesn't make any sense. Like if the Lakers mess up something with Luca, that doesn't make Nico Harrison any better. That just means both parties screwed it. And so I think that's the same thing that happened on draft night with the Hawks. They let Luka pass. It doesn't obviously Trey's a great player, but you drop the ball. Why not taking Luka? Um, my thing with like the current makeup of the actual Lakers roster is now like obviously we've got Dorian Finney-Smith who likes to play defense. Vando's coming back and he likes to play defense, but that's pretty much it. We have like no defense on our roster and no size, and the reports have been clear that they're just like actively trying to get any center in the door that they possibly can, which it makes sense. I mean, they were already light in bigs, and then they got rid of one and brought in Kleber, who's good, but not gonna be your starting center, playing 40 minutes a night. Like that's just not gonna happen. Luca
Also
will make
always
a
hurt.
Luca will make a guy like Jackson Hayes look like an all-star, but we do need somebody coming off the bench or someone to run with him. So I think the Lakers have more moves up their sleeve. I don't think
Oh
they're
yeah.
done. They've got a lot of those mid-level guys that are making like $10 million a year are guys that are barely cracking our rotation right now. I think you quickly see two or three of those guys packaged together. Honestly, I wouldn't even be surprised to see LeBron go. I know he came out and
Mm.
said, "Oh, I'm gonna stick it out past the trade deadline." I mean, I think we have to take everything with a grain of salt at this point if a trade like this one with Luca can get through. So realistically, I think they probably packaged together a couple of those mid-level, like $10 million guys to bring in and somebody that's going to bolster the lineup and probably would need to be a big. Um, but if they don't, I don't think we really have a shot. Obviously, it's you got two of the best players on the planet, but you got nobody playing defense. And when it comes to playoff time, you need some defenders.
Yeah, they do have a little bit of some restrictive components to what they can do next. So they can't aggregate Dorian Finney-Smith if they wanted to move him. They can't aggregate Maxey, who they just got, who's 11 million on the books. And then your people who you could aggregate are people you probably want to keep around other than Gabe Vincent, and that's Rui, Reeves, Vando, and then you have Vincent, and they're all 10 plus. And those are really like Rui, Reeves, and Vando are and Dorian Finney-Smith are your assets, and then it's like who's a good trade partner who has what you need, and don't
Warriors.
like I'll send you Capella,
Yeah,
send me Rui or Vando or Reeves, I'll be thrilled.
yeah. I,
You can
I
have
wouldn't be I
Capella.
wouldn't be surprised honestly if Rui becomes one of the pieces that moves. Obviously he plays power forward, but he's been playing a little smaller than that this season. If we're like keeping it honest, he hasn't rebounded like the kind of power forward that we need. Like obviously, I really like Rui. I'm not saying I'm wanting them to ship him out. I'm just saying I think there's a lot of teams that would be interested in him that we might be able to work his salary in there because he's making like 17 million a
17.
year. Yeah, so that's uh that's not chum change. You put him and Vando together, and all of a sudden you have Nick Claxton holding down the middle for you.
Mm.
So there's some options. I had heard talk about bringing in Vooch, and especially when they've just moved Levine, it wouldn't be surprising if Vooch was on the move too. I don't want that to happen. He hasn't played a lick of defense in his life, but and that's clearly the area that the Lakers need filled. Look, I'll take any of the Hawks centers. Bring them on over. I'll take any of them.
Well, I think that's the thing with what y'all need now is the rim running center. Like Dallas made the finals last year with Daniel Gafford, who was slumming it away in Washington as Kristaps Porzingis' backup the year before.
Right.
Guys that work well with Luca are a dime a dozen, and you can find them pretty easily,
Yeah.
especially with some decent assets that you have. I would probably think that Reeves would be potentially the expendable one because Luca's going to take the lion's share of the ball handling and. You know, Reeves doesn't provide enough defensively next to Luca to probably consider sticking around, I would probably stick with Rui and play a really big lineup. Even though he's not the greatest rebounder, Luka is a good rebounder. I think the Lakers can make a run for it. I know all of you are kind of like doubtful, but I'm a Luka guy. It pains me that he's on the Lakers, but I think the Lakers have a chance this year.
We're not doubtful. We're just saying if Luka's healthy, that's really all there is to it.
Yeah.
If Luka's healthy, yeah. I
The
mean,
he could drag the Washington Wizards to a conference finals if he was
In the
healthy.
East.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But that remains to be seen. The moral of the whole story for me is we've I'm not banking anything on this year, and whatever comes out of this year will just be icing on the 10-year long cake of Luca that I've just acquired.
Yeah.
And I'm a pretty happy camper.
I just want to take a minute because I'm a big like history buff of the game. I just want to go through and list the names that the Lakers have acquired in trade for the 75-year history of the NBA. So let's see. We have Will Chamberlain, pretty good guy. You've heard of him once or twice. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. They traded the pick or got the pick in a trade for it was Gail Goodrich, I believe, that ended up being Magic Johnson. Also a guy you've probably heard of before. I think they got Shaq in free agency, if I remember correctly, but it was at the perfect timing to get Shaq. Of course, they traded Kobe for Vlade Divac, which at the time was like an interesting move, but then they got Kobe and Shaq in the same summer. We all remember the Pau Gasol trade where Memphis did exactly what Dallas did and was like, "Hey, do you want this guy for pennies on the dollar?" And now we got well, first then they had AD in the trade, and now Luca. It's just insane how like the Lakers get everything. Why do you get everything, Jordan? I hate it.
Well, let's be clear. They've clearly made it their strategy to build by trade. Like we have not done anything well in the draft. I don't remember, with the exception of James Worthy and obviously Magic Johnson, but that, like you said, that came via trade too. Um,
So Reeves isn't anything but mid. You drafted him.
Look, he's not. We're talking about the star player on your roster.
Yeah, you're right.
Obviously,
He's
we've
their
we've
best.
done we've done all right with some role players. But the we are not the Golden State Warriors who managed to get Clay, Curry, Draymond all organically from the draft and without even tanking. Not even implementing a 76ers-esque trust the process rebuild. So
I'm glad you mentioned the Warriors because that's another piece of like the history of the league and what Nico Harrison said about like needing to improve their defense. You can't replicate offensive dynamism. What Luka brings to the table is very unique, and I would point it exactly to Steph Curry. Steph's never been the greatest defender, but you don't trade Steph Curry when he provides the offensive capabilities that he does. I just can't understand that
it
rationale.
it was also just a bad point of contention for him to make when after the trade deadline last year, they were second in defensive rating.
Yeah.
Second. And you're like, yeah, we can't replicate. Like he basically is saying we couldn't replicate what we just did with
the
like
exact
honestly
same
they've
lineup.
essentially the exact same lineup. They still have great perimeter defenders like
Yeah.
surrounding
Yeah.
the stars. It's yeah.
I mean,
He's
PJ
gonna
Washington has gotten better defensively, in my opinion. And then you brought in Marshall
Quentin
too,
Grimes.
who's
and
um
Quentin Grimes. Yep.
and
Yeah.
Quentin Grimes. Marshall is probably not quite as good as DJJ, but at least in the same conversation.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not like defense was holding them back last year. Obviously, they made a finals run. So if you had Luca back healthy, I think you're and with Gafford and Lively both playing better than they did last year. So it's
So I'm
pretty
really interested
absurd.
in seeing what these teams do next, right? The the Lakers, they've got LeBron who's 40 years old. I mean, is there much tread left on those tires? You got Austin Reeves, who's a good player. Like he's got a ton of value as well for what he brings to the table, especially at his price point, right? they got to move one of them to do something to upgrade. Because right now they've got what, three guys who are 6'5" to 6'8", kind of all doing the same thing. Like, you
I
got
think
ball
it's
control, but like that's not going to get you a championship this year. And like you've got such a disparity in age, you almost need to start pulling something different together. Go ahead, Haley.
it's kind of like Josh was saying, like, dude, the Mavericks are kind of proof in the pudding. Like they changed they not as drastically as the Lakers are this year, but they moved a couple pieces. They get PJ and Gafford, and those guys started for the rest of the year, changed the entire trajectory of that team. I, I'm not trying to be hyperbolic, but they were kind of middling before they got those two, and then next thing you know, they're in the finals. And then this year, you get Luka, and I mean, basically, you just need a good rim protecting center, and like you can probably figure it out.
Yeah, I think I don't want them to move on from someone like Reeves too quickly. Like obviously his value diminishes a little bit when Luca's usage rate is there. But it's not like his value is nothing. I mean,
No.
Kyrie had plenty of space to get his running as the wingman for for Luca, and PJ Washington actually had enough space to do what he needed to do as well. That both of those guys were able to make plays not just off the ball. And also, I like Austin Reeves as an off the ball guy, and that's where he initially found most of his success. It's really just been in the last like calendar year that we've seen the ball get put in his hands more to go and make a play. Before that, his first couple of seasons in the league, he was pretty much exclusively an off ball guy, doing catch and shoots and 45 cuts. So if he is able to pull back a little bit into that role, I think we see his with I think we see his efficiency go back up a little bit. That was one of my favorite things about him his first couple of years is he was a guy that would take 7 shots and make 5 of them and have 15 points. And that's obviously not been the case as much this year. He's shooting mid to low 40s from the field, but that's because his volume is so much higher and he's got the ball in his hands. So I
They're
think it
about there.
I think it works, and I really like the other wing pieces that they have now with Vando back and DFS, who I am just disproportionately high on. He's been
Join the
shooting
club.
he's shooting over 50% from three since we picked him up, and will lock down your favorite player any day of the week. So very, very happy by that acquisition. D'Lo's been performing pretty well in Brooklyn, and so everyone's like, "Oh, you look what we gave up." I'm like, "Look what we got. We filled our biggest hole. The main glaring issue for the team just got filled. So give me a center with a couple of the role players that aren't touching the court, or moving Rui, and who knows what could happen."
So
Yeah,
you're
I'm
not
glad you
looking.
mentioned Finney Smith. The big thing with him too is there's proof of concept of success with Luca. Like, don't forget, he was arguably the Mavs' third best player
hmm
when he was with Luca, the way he guarded the other team's best player, and constantly made open shots off of Luca's gravity.
And he was a
Yeah.
worse shooter back then. Like
Yeah,
he revolutionized his jump shot over the last year and a half.
yeah,
So I mean, yeah, he was like a high 30%er guy back when he was on the Mavs. He could easily be a mid 40s guy
yeah.
with how open he's going to be getting passes from Luca. So
And
yeah,
LeBron.
yeah. Well, that's the proof of concept is there from the last couple weeks of playing that his percentages go up playing with LeBron, let
Yeah,
alone Luca, whose offensive game is more versatile than LeBron's at this point.
yeah. You now have two of the five best passers in the league on the same team.
Yeah.
Damn it!
So let's transition to the other juicy trade that's just happening as we're logging on to this meeting. So the trade is between the Spurs, the Kings, and the Bulls. Haley, you want to break it down for us and what's
I
going through?
got you, dog. The Spurs are receiving De'Aaron Fox and Jordan McLaughlin. The Kings are receiving Zach LaVine, Side Sissoko, three first round picks, the 2025 Charlotte Hornets pick, the 2027 San Antonio pick, the 2031 Minnesota pick, and three second round picks, the 2025 Chicago pick, the 2028 Denver pick, and the 2028 Sacramento pick. They're getting their own pick back. And then the Bulls are receiving Zach Collins, Trey Jones, and Kevin Herter, and their own 2025 pick back from San Antonio.
Chicago
So
tanking the rest of this season.
Yeah.
Whenever you hear like trades generally go, the better the play, you get the best player in the trade, you win. But I think the Kings won this one.
I think I'd
I'm sorry?
probably agree. I think I agree with you. I mean, we're looking at they got the second best player in the trade. Zach LaVine is no slouch, and they've got a legitimate shot at the number one pick in the draft with the 2025 Charlotte first round pick.
Yeah.
That's an insane. Not to mention the other two first round picks that they got and 3 seconds,
mhm.
including Chicago's second round pick, which should be a really good one, especially since it's becoming clear that Chicago is going to be tanking. So that could be like one of the first picks of the second round, which is essentially just a late first.
Hmm.
Yeah.
This is a
The
stacked draft too. So like even if they don't get the first, there's Amari Bailey. There's a bunch of dudes out there who
Yeah.
would be a fantastic addition to that Kings team.
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know if I see the Kings winning it. Like, who's their point guard now? Because I like Zach LaVine. I think Zach LaVine's underrated, but you have Malik Monk, you have Zach LaVine as your two guards now. Who's
You're
DeMar
probably going to
DeRozan?
move.
Like,
What is it? Ellis. What's his first name?
Ellis, Keon.
Keon
Ellis?
Ellis. Yeah, he's probably your starting point guard, which isn't terrible.
Oof.
He's a
He's a
dog on
dog. He's a
I mean,
defense.
dog
he's a
for
great defensive
sure.
player, yeah. But I don't
But
know about him distributing.
yeah,
I
well,
mean, you have
De'Aaron Fox
Sabonis.
wasn't a massive distributor either. Most of their distribution came out of DHOs with Sabonis. So
Yep.
um, you
Well, he's
can.
not good enough to be an all-star, so why are we even considering him?
Force him out for
I'm
Sabonis.
excited for DHOs between Levine and Sabonis. That's
Yeah.
that's going to be fun.
Quick comment on Levine. The dude is probably one of the three best shooters in the league right now, and I don't think that's being hyperbolic. Like he has been ridiculous all season shooting the ball, and I agree with you, Jordan. I'm excited for Levine to be with Sabonis. On the flip side, I'm not excited to see him back with DeMar DeRozan. For whatever reason, their games just did not mesh well together. I can kind of put the pieces together. Like he just takes up space in the areas that Levine wants to operate, and DeRozan just slows games down.
Yeah.
And Levine's been, he likes to get out on the break still. So a little bit of frustration for Levine. I was really excited about his year that he was having, kind of a comeback year for him. Excited to see hopefully his chemistry with Sabonis, but not so excited about him and DeRozan being together again. But
This feels like a start of a progression of dominoes that started last night, and we're gonna get them all through the rest of the week. Like, I don't think the Kings are done. I don't think the Lakers are done. I think they're gonna start moving some pieces, and we're gonna see some different things happen. Like, it wouldn't surprise you if DeRozan goes somewhere else, just because of that dynamic you talked about, and you kind of start going towards Levine, you get different value out of DeRozan.
Yeah,
Um,
it really just depends on what strategy the Kings are going for. If they're going to hang on to that 2025 Charlotte pick, then I think it's probably going to behoove them to not make a ton of moves. But if they're trying to use this as a tool to, push for win now, then obviously that the having that pick in your back pocket is super valuable. It's just got a ton of a weight behind it. So I mean, the other piece that we haven't even talked about yet is the fact that the Spurs got De'Aaron Fox, and this is what
yeah,
Yes.
this is what we were talking about a couple pods ago. Not only did they get De'Aaron Fox, which we talked about being a great fit, but they didn't even have to ship out any of their wing players that we thought that they were going to have to put together with a bunch of picks to get
they didn't
De'Aaron.
they didn't give up any meaningful rotation players, and Zach Collins is a rotation player right now for them,
Yeah, yeah,
but like
he has one of the
What?
worst injury histories in the league.
Yeah, and Trey Jones has been in and out of the lineup to start the season, and with them having a Castle, he's essentially moot on their team now. So he's not a
Exactly.
massive loss for them. Not that he's a bad player, but he's just like he's duplicative or a little bit worse than the other guys that they've got in that position already. So
Yeah.
you bring in De'Aaron Fox, obviously an upgrade in that regard. If I don't know what they're going to do with all of the guards that they have on that lineup now. So who knows if the Spurs are done? Maybe look to them packaging together a couple of those guards still and shipping them over to Brooklyn for Cam Johnson. That could be a filler for them that would elevate them even further. Obviously, just having De'Aaron Fox now on your team is a massive win.
Yeah, I think it's like De'Aaron Fox to the Spurs to pair with that Victor Wembanyama guy. Like the Spurs are going to be scary, and they keep Chris Paul. They keep all the guys that you mentioned. Like that's just a massive talent infusion. Like I'm sure everyone listening saw the highlights of Wemby from the Bucks game. Like now you're adding one of the 15, 20 best players in the league to Victor Wembanyama. Like that's scary.
And outside of just top 20 players, we're talking about a probably top 10 in terms of playmaking, and
Hmm.
it's not just his athleticism, but how efficient he is
Yeah.
with the ball, like how electric of a playmaker he can be. Getting up the floor quickly, breaking down defenses quickly.
Transition
Obviously,
offense is gonna be so much fun with this team right now.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Don't be insane.
What the
Hot
heck is
take, the
Chris Paul
Spurs
gonna do?
He's just gonna mentor them. Like he's just gonna mentor.
turn them into
That's
winners.
Yeah, good job, guys.
turn them into winners and not finals winners.
De'Aaron
Literally.
Fox,
We're
throw more
gonna,
lobs.
He's gonna retire before the end of the season. He'll be fine, and then they'll be able to convert in the postseason.
Hot take, the
oh no,
Spurs
man.
finished with a better record than Dallas to finish this year.
No. They got a pretty they
I see Jordan's wheel spinning. Join me, Jordan. You didn't want to join me with Memphis. Join me up with San Antonio.
I really like De'Aaron Fox, so it's hard for me to disagree. But I think all the pieces in Dallas fit together. Uh, my concern with the Spurs right now is because they didn't. I anticipated them giving up a couple of those guard players that guard rotation right now is dense with I mean Castle's only playing like 20 minutes a game. Vassell's playing like 25 minutes a game. CP3's playing like 25 minutes a game. That I don't know who's gonna lose all those minutes. And if they are losing the minutes, then it's just wasted value on your team unless you trade them. So I think everybody has a clear fit on the Dallas team right now, which is what you're looking for.
Except for
So,
Lively and Gafford.
well, Anthony Davis wants to run the four. That I was talking about that last night
kid
too. I was
said
like,
he was
oh, what are you going to do with all those guys? They're going to have to change their offense. Like it's going to look entirely different than when Luka was on the
I
team.
think that's what's gonna be giving me heartache about this whole thing is like you just go from a Luka-centered offense to what are we doing? What is my role?
Yeah.
And I think the West is too stacked. I don't think they even make the playoffs. Right now they're sitting at the
Oof.
10th spot anyways.
Yeah.
Like I think there's going to be too much confusion, and I don't think it's going to work. And I think not Malik Monk, the De'Aaron Fox edition is addition by addition, and they're just going to continue the upward trajectory. It's not going to have to revamp their entire offense
Hmm.
because they're
I
sitting
love
there
it.
at 9-10, I think, right now, or as
Yeah.
it stands.
Spurs are at 12. Dallas is one game ahead of Sacramento for ninth, but only 3 games separate them.
It's close enough that it's definitely
yeah, I
worth
didn't
discussion and
I
interested to see.
did not realize it was that close. I thought there was like a 10 game
Well,
like
the King,
difference
well,
in the win
yeah,
column.
yeah. The Spurs and the Kings both have been pretty red hot recently. Everybody that we anticipated being decent, obviously with the exception of Haley when it comes to the Kings, everybody that we anticipated being decent that had really slow starts has picked it up in the West, and they're just destroying the bottom half of the Eastern Conference. You've got the Timberwolves are now like 6 games over 500 after starting the beginning of the season like 15 and 16. And you've got the Kings
Denver silently just dominating
plugging
teams,
away.
winning
We
every
Yeah, we
game.
were worried about them after the first 10, 15 games because they couldn't do anything without Joker on the floor. And they fleeced Charlotte last night. They absolutely stole one from them. They were down by 4 with like 40 seconds left and managed to actually no, they were down by 5 and managed to lose the game by 4.
This is the craziest thing of the whole night. Maybe this will be a good point to wrap it here. The Lakers are fifth in the Western Conference and just got offered Luka Doncic. What in the world? What in the world?
Unbelievable.
I'm speechless at this point.
I'm just curious to see where the next dominoes are falling because I mean, like a few of the guys mentioned, I saw there was a CJ McCollum posted. He's like, I'm gonna be packing a bag preemptively because if Luka's not safe, nobody is. And then there was a bunch of people in the comments who were like, no one wants to trade for you, you bum. And but the point stands. Like if Luka's on the table to be traded for, I don't know if the
Everybody.
other owners are going to necessarily follow suit, but man, it's certainly eye-opening.
There's
And
four guys off the table then.
it could
It's
be
Wembanyama, it's Jokic, it's LeBron, and Bradley Beal because the last two have no trade clauses.
all
Yeah,
I'm
I think
saying is
I'm calling LeBron moving this week. That is my call. I think he's going to the Warriors. I think he's going to waive his no trade clause. You get a buy one get one free with Bronny. He's going.
No.
I would be happy if it did because in order to make something like that happen, it would be getting us Kaminga and probably Trace Jackson and probably Buddy Heald. They would need to put like 4 players together. I
Guys
think
that
they'd
fit
I think they'd have
amazingly
to
with
put Wiggins
Luka.
in there too for the salaries to work. And revamp us with some younger guys. Obviously, you lose a star, but you can get the rebuild starting sooner. Um,
Imagine Buddy Healed with Luca.
Jonathan Kaminga with Luka. All of those guys with Luka.
Who
I'm
says
about to,
no?
I'm
Who
about to
says
quit.
no?
Nico
prob
says no.
Probably the Warriors say no because they are a much better organization at developing their players than the Lakers are. But I wouldn't say no. That's for sure.
All
I'm
I
right.
think
curious to
LeBron says
see
no.
if I'm curious to see if this move by the Mavs ends up being because we've talked about just being generally upset with players clearly not being locked in, players sitting out a bunch of games for injuries they don't have. Is this move a way for the league to kind of revitalize their ratings by kind of putting a little fire underneath the star players, get them to play a little harder, get them to earn those contracts that they have. I don't know.
Put
I
one
guess
of
we'll
the
find
league's
out.
3 best players in the #1 glamour market.
There you go. Orchestrated by Adam Silver himself.
Look, all I gotta say is Patrick Mahomes is a Dallas Mavericks fan and a Luca fan, and he's upset now, which makes me happy because fly Eagles fly.
I think all of America's behind that coach for the next week and a half. Even if you're not an Eagles fan, you're an Eagles fan right now. All right, gentlemen. I think we should do one quick round of hot takes for the rest of this week and who we see move. Any guys you're anticipating seeing that we're not expecting? I think we're seeing some of the moves starting to trickle out, and we've talked about a few of these already. But what you guys think?
Any chance I can get Jokic in Boston?
No, you're done.
Dang it.
You, Josh, win.
Uh, I think Memphis does something. I mean, they're third in the West and they have a number of movable contracts. They have
Hmm.
assets. I don't like the Jimmy Butler fit. I also don't like Jimmy Butler. But if Luke is moving, I don't, everyone's on the table. Hot take of who they could get. Dang, I don't even know. Like Devin Booker, does Devin Booker get traded? I don't. I mean, Ishbia seems way more confident than these fools in Dallas, but at this point, anything's up for grabs. But I think Memphis makes a move.
Here's one hot take option that I think would win OKC a championship, but I don't think it'll happen. Is you put together Hartenstein and Chet Holmgren for LeBron, and then you use a couple of your picks to bring in an additional center to replace the ones that you lost, and I think you guarantee yourself a championship. And it gets the Lakers the centerpieces that they need.
You know who would facilitate that? The Atlanta Hawks, because we've got a
Bro,
surplus of centers.
if OKC offered you 3 first-round picks for a Kongwu and another role player, and those guys go over to OKC with LeBron,
A Kongwu and Bogey.
a Kongwu and Bogey for 3 first-round picks and a bag of peanuts, and
Yep.
then Chet and Hartenstein for LeBron, who's stopping that team?
The
Yeah.
Boston Celtics.
Cap.
I'm kind of more out on LeBron, I think, than you are at this point.
LeBron is 40 years old.
Yeah.
LeBron is still averaging 24, 9, and 8. We
He's
can't
also
we
40
can't
years
look at
old.
the age number and just overlook the fact that he's outperforming like 99% of the league.
He's still the greatest of all time. He's still fantastic. He's still an all-star. Like I'm not completely negating the guy, but Hartenstein does some real stuff for them. When or Chet does some real stuff for them that I don't think
I'm
is
not saying they will do it. I'm just saying
You asked
I
for a
would
hot
do it.
take.
I know. I love the hot I do love the hot take. I'm just picking through it. I'm picking through it. I'm sorry. You're right. You're right. I love it. I did not expect that. That was great. Haley, you got one?
I think this isn't hot, but like Memphis and Houston are the two who I think have the most players who are assets, who are like real hoopers that they could trade and package for something. I think that they could get somebody who could make their teams a lot better. I just don't know who that would be.
Hey, look, they
Um,
need a star. We talked about that before. Şengün got the All-Star nod, but let's be honest, it's not.
Ahmed Thompson. Let me introduce you to their star.
yeah, like honest to goodness, probably their best player. That's not even an exaggeration.
I'm
I
I'm
don't
a
know.
Şengün guy, but after seeing what Ahmed's done the last like week or so,
He's
like
insane.
he's going to be their best player in like 2 to 3 years. Full
Oh
stop.
man, am I the only one that thinks he's overhyped right now? I
Yes.
don't know.
I'm kind of with you, Jordan. I like him. I mean, I've got his
Me
twin out
too.
in Detroit, and I'm,
He's a
I'm here for
freak,
him.
but he can't shoot the ball, and he's 6'5". Like I don't know what your longevity is to be a perennial all-star if you can't shoot the ball at 6'5". I don't know.
That's fair. I mean, you know, with that in mind,
He could
maybe
be
he's the one who gets moved. Like,
he could be an elevated Josh Hart. Like I'm cool with that, but that doesn't mean he's like an all
so
NBA type guy.
so Sean Marion, that's what we're saying. He's
Sure,
Sean
I'm
Marion.
cool with that too. He could be an all-star, but he's not all NBA. Move him now. Sell him high.
That's the thing. Yeah, like that would be pretty surprising if you took Amen and I don't know, Jay Sean Tate and throw in one of their decent players and get
Well, they'd need another like mid-level contract guy if they were going after a star.
yeah, true.
But
That's a
Yeah, I
good
don't know.
segue to my hot take. I think
It,
Giannis moves. I'd
man,
say could you
Say it
facilitate
with your
Houston?
chest.
I didn't say it, not with my chest. Uh,
I don't know, maybe
yeah,
because
I'd say
Giannis makes a
Giannis to the Rockets.
boatload.
Like that would be a lot of fun, and you get some of
Fred
those young pieces back.
Fred VanVleet and
Probably Ahmed has to be in that deal.
That's
yeah,
fine,
you'd have to
probably.
send
but you do that,
Who
right?
do yeah, if you're Houston, who do you have to hang on to if you're going after the star? I think
I
you
don't
have
th-
to
that
hang
If
on
it's
to
Giannis, no
Şengün,
one.
I don't
I
think you
guess.
have to hang on to any one of them. You just have to hang on to
Some of
two or
them.
three of them. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like I don't know. None of them have shown themselves to be inexpendable or irreplaceable with
Yeah,
another player and other type of skill set. So
I am
right.
pretty high on Şengün, so if I was them, that's the player that I put my like put straight into my my handbag and don't let him go. But
yep, but he's the Charmander of Jokic's.
which means he hasn't hit his full evolution yet. All right, he's going
Okay.
to be goaded.
Yeah. Bars.
Gentlemen, any more hot takes before we wrap this bad boy up? All right. Well, for all the
See what the
listeners,
league
thanks for
holds.
joining us today. Keep your ankles laced up nice and tight and keep your friend groups even tighter.